I just had literally an image in my head of a wall that went to infinity, and I just had to climb the wall. And I just remember thinking, all right, just one brick at a time. Just start putting my pegs in the wall, and I'm just going to start climbing. I'm not even going to look at the top. I'm just going to keep climbing. And all of a sudden, I was climbing over that wall. A couple years later, I couldn't believe it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Founder Hour podcast. This is your co-host, Posh. For episode 37, we had the pleasure of sitting down with Dr. Drew Pinsky, celebrity doctor, addiction medicine specialist, and media personality. He's been the host of nationally syndicated shows such as Loveline, Dr. Drew on Call, Lifechangers, and Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew, among many others. He's also a former medical director at Las Encinas Hospital in Pasadena, staff member at Huntington Memorial Hospital, and a private practitioner. We talk about how Dr. Drew got his start on radio while still a student at medical school, his passion for singing and music, and how he has been able to manage burnout throughout his entire career. Dr. Drew also shed light on many of today's most important topics: happiness, the meaning of life, mental health, therapy, the future of media, and the current political climate from a psychological perspective. Tune in to hear Dr. Drew's amazing story of how he took the unconventional route and put himself in uncomfortable situations to become who he is today. Oh, and while you're listening, please make sure to subscribe and give us a rating. It really means a lot. Thank you. Hey everyone, I am Posh. I'm here with Pat, and we are lucky to be with Dr. Drew today at his home. Thank you for inviting us, Dr. Drew.
Thank you for doing this. It's easy for me. I rolled out of bed.
And I just want to give a quick shout out to our mutual friend Rafi at Premion, who helped connect us and get us, this opportunity to talk to you.
Give full respect to his wife.
And Silva, who probably is the one that
really
told him to do it.
It's the wife that got us going.
Yeah, and then your wife was the one that I've been communicating with all this time.
Silva and my wife are close, and Silva's a jeweler downtown, and my wife cannot get enough of her stuff. So,
and I was telling you before we started, we had met one time, and I know you don't remember, and I don't blame you. And I was also a much heavier dude back then. So we met at a fundraiser for a nonprofit that I was helping out with called LA to DC, and there was a bunch of these celebrity folks and very influential people there, and it was a great opportunity to raise money. It was for genocide recognition in general. So I've known you even before then, and then following you since then. So we're definitely excited to be here to talk about your upbringing, your journey, and
Sure.
some hot topics.
Okay.
Whether it's mental health, whether it's stuff that we were talking about before, including growing up in an immigrant family and just how people, children are treated, and a bunch of other things that'll come up, I'm sure. So,
but you've kept the streak alive. I have yet to begin a conversation with any of my Armenian friends that the genocide isn't discussed in the first 180 seconds. So well done. Well done.
We're doing our job.
But I tried to make it so that I didn't say Armenian genocide. I just said genocide recognition.
But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But and for those people around the country, it's so funny. I do a lot of work around the country, and you have to sort of explain where Armenia is, what the Armenian genocide is, and you have to identify Kardashians and figures out there.
That's where it all starts. Yeah.
Well, but you'll be able to sort of point at, because Armenians have tremendous success in the community at large. And so, and unless you're from Southern California, you don't really realize there's a concentrated community here.
Yeah.
And so I've always been very close to it and appreciate all my Armenian friends.
Well, we appreciate you saying that.
And we were talking about the Armenian parenting style and how much. By the way, I've got a whole. I don't know if you want to get into this.
Go for it.
This is nutty.
Let's do it.
But I have a pet theory. I believe that the Armenian population is the lost tribe of Israel. I believe it. You went because I was raised Jewish, even though my mother was not.
Yeah.
And moving in and out of that community, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
The parenting is the same. The culture is the same. The values are the same.
Some of the food is the same.
The food is the same. The special language you use occasionally, and you move in and out of it. The clergy is the same. The relationship with the clergy is the same. It's insane how close the cultures are.
Right.
So, Mount Ararat. Noah landed there, didn't he? I mean, there you go.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So, but if you think about even during the Armenian genocide, Armenians were living in the Ottoman Empire where the Turks were, where the Assyrians, Greeks. Everybody really coexisted.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think that a few years later, like it was a shit show, and now to this day, it kind of still lasts.
And to be fair, I mean, those tribes always got scapegoated. To be fair, I mean, think about it. Always became a.
There's just so much history. Just like you don't even know where it all started, but it could have all started in the same place.
It's interesting, right? Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
But I value what you value to a great extent. So
we appreciate that. So I know that you were born in Pasadena, where we're also sitting right now. So you haven't really gone too far away from home.
Thank you.
You know, are you afraid of leaving your home?
A lot of things happen to me by accident, or you know, who knows, whatever subconscious motivators were there, but my perception was that it was just, oh, well, here I am. So I went to college back east, kind of figured I'd stay back there, but got into SC medical school, really wanted to go there, really loved the county. I wanted to be a clinician, so the idea of being at the county was really exciting to me. And came back, and where was everybody living? All of my students, all my classmates that went to medical school at SC, they all lived in Pasadena and South Pasadena. So now here I am living in Pasadena. And then I did a residency at hospitals here in Pasadena. And then once you do a residency here, you're all of a sudden connected with all the consulting staff. Now you're setting up practice here. And that was that. And once I did that, then my kids went to the same high school I went to and stuff. So it just was another quick generation. Whether we stay here, I don't know. So that's what stuck us here.
Did you study? I mean, did you always want to become a doctor?
I did. I think it was more of an assumption. My dad was a doctor. My uncle was a doctor. And it was sort of an assumption that I rebelled against for a short time in college and then came back to and had to get my crap together very, very quickly and did. And when I got back to it after screwing around for a couple of years, I was really committed. I mean, I was in. And it was mine at that point. It was my decision to be a part of that. And I never looked back. It was just fun for me.
One thing that, like, when you talk to like a doctor perspective, doctor to be, the dilemma is always like, well, which direction do I take this in?
In
for
medicine?
you, in medicine, but for you, it's kind of like, I know your mother was a singer, so I think I read somewhere that you were like even thinking about being an opera singer.
Yeah, I did. That's when I was screwing around for those couple of years. That's what I was toying with.
I'm assuming you were like a bass, or were you baritone?
Like a little baritone, sort of a lyric baritone, but Verdi baritone. I could do all the Verdi roles. And I'm a horrible. One of my sons is a musician, a real musician, and now his piano teacher was an Armenian gentleman. So, and
you're the one that keeps bringing it up. By the way.
I love it. He's a real musician, and I was a terrible musician. And now that I've lived with a real musician, I realize just how bad of a musician I was, and thank God I didn't make any attempt to go after that profession. It would have been a disaster.
So I know you're, in medical school, and if I have my math correctly, you were kind of like, I mean, you were still a medical student, and you already kind of started getting into television and doing kind of media.
Radio? Oh, no.
Or
more
was it
accidents.
radio? Was
More
Loveline
accidents.
radio?
Radio.
Oh, it started as radio. Okay.
In 1983.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So I lived by the radio station, and people were socializing with people that worked at this radio station. That sort of K-Rock came out of nowhere in 1983.
Yeah.
It was nothing, and then all of a sudden it was the dominant radio station, like overnight. And we were all listening to it, but I lived right next to it. And a friend of mine called me and said, they do this show at night. They need some help. They'd been charged to make it a community service show, and they didn't know what to do. And my friend goes, you'll come in and you'll use big words. It'll be really funny. We'll do a segment called Ask a Surgeon. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Anyway, I met with them, was freaked out, but was kind of convinced to do it, and came in with my textbooks and stuff. And heard these questions, these amazing questions being asked of FM disc jockeys in the middle of the night. And I was like, Jesus. And nobody knew about AIDS. Nobody. And even the physicians, we were still just evolving from calling it GRIDS to AIDS, gay-related intestinal disease syndrome to AIDS. We didn't have a causative agent yet. The term safe sex hadn't been coined yet. Nothing. And nobody was talking to young people about it. And I thought, oh my God, somebody's got to do this.
And so was this like while you were in medical school?
Yeah, I was a fourth-year medical student.
So you hadn't even like practiced?
No, I hadn't finished medical school yet.
So did you like kind of think that, did you like throughout your childhood, going back to how your mother was a singer, a professional singer, did you have it in your mind that like, I want to get into the media space eventually?
Not. That categorically
It just
no.
happened.
This was like, I knew that in my second year of medical school, I found myself going, I need to get a vocal coach again to start singing because I missed that. So I always had that part of me that I needed sort of an outlet.
Yeah.
And maybe this was part of that, which is why I took to it. But what compelled me was nobody was talking to young people about HIV. I mean, that blew my mind, and that they never heard of it. And And a couple of years in, when I was now in residency, my residency director flipped his lid, saying it was inappropriate. You don't talk about this material. You don't understand how different it was then.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you don't understand. I'm 24 years old. I know what young people are doing, and they need to hear this.
Right.
And it was just this body of information that I now understood, and it'd be so easy to communicate it to young people. I thought we got to do it.
And was it like an epidemic? I don't want to call it
It was
an epidemic
unbelievable
now, but like was it?
Oh, it was terrible. You can't even imagine what a dark time it was. I was a week would not go by that I wasn't telling a healthy, a young man, you have 6 months to live, and that was it.
This is you as a student.
As a student, but I was resident by that point,
Right.
and it was just so sad. It's one of the most sad. People are not aware how horrible this was.
And was it? I mean, at that time, like, had there been a lot of like developments in kind of like trying to develop a cure? Or
Yes, AZT came along then.
Yeah.
And the Dallas Buyers Club worked against us. It was a mess. They were terrible. They were at first good when we had no treatments. Good, please, whatever you guys can do. Once we started having treatments, they undermined everything we were trying to do. And listen, in the history of medicine, the fact that a syndrome was identified, the epidemiology worked out, a causative agent found, and the biology characterized, and then effective treatments, all in about 15 years, took 1,000 years to figure out what was causing syphilis. I mean, it's
that's insane when you look at it.
Insane. And people are like, well, it took so long. You don't understand. This was the most unbelievable mobilization of biological minds in history. And thank God, because it was just the most horrific thing you can imagine.
And this is like pre-Magic Johnson coming out with HIV, so nobody really is even talking about it.
No, they were talking about it. Oh yeah, there was every day in the paper there was a article about it, but no one was really talking about how you got it, no one was talking to young people, and no one was talking about how to prevent it. The term safe sex had not been coined yet, and I was like, hey, condoms, everybody. That was it. That was my first, move.
And I know there were some like big celebrities at the time that actually passed away from. I mean, was it Freddie Mercury?
Rock Hudson, Freddie Mercury,
really? Easy-E.
Oh, it's very that Easy later, yeah,
90s, yeah.
But oh god, it was a terrible time.
Yeah,
really rough.
So is that something that you were? So once you graduated or you were in residency, you want to continue on this path of preventing HIV and AIDS, or is there you
by then
a surgeon?
No, I never wanted to be a surgeon. I'm not interested in that. I want like my patients awake. What happened was I started moonlighting at a psychiatric hospital, and I got very interested in that. And Loveline then was still one night a week, Sunday night late, like 11 to 2, 10 to 1.
And what were you talking about? Was it more than just
on Loveline? AIDS? Yeah. There's an awful lot of STDs and birth control because there was nowhere for people to go for that information. There was no internet, and there was no reliable source, and so it was the resource. And then as the 90s kicked in, we started talking about relationships and trauma and repetitive patterns in relationships, and because that's what started emerging was this horrible epidemic we'd been through of childhood sexual abuse, physical abuse, and we started seeing all that stuff. And then it went to 5 nights a week, and then some guy came along and said, "Do we want to make a TV show in the mid-90s?" And I was like, well, what the hell's that? I have no idea. Just leave me alone to practice medicine.
Yeah.
I literally was like, I'll give you Friday and Saturday afternoon. That's it. If you can do a TV show on those. So we would do 6 shows a day, Friday and Saturday afternoon. We didn't even realize we were doing something kind of weird.
Yeah. And did you see a future for yourself in this at the time? Because I know you were also the chief resident at Huntington Hospital. So you did practice after.
Oh yeah.
As like
I had a huge practice for about 15 years.
Okay, so it was kind of simultaneous.
That's why I said I'd only let them do this TV show in this little quarter.
Right.
I had an inpatient medical practice, which was a lot of intensive care medicine. I had an outpatient medical practice where I'd see about 20 or 30 patients a day. I had a nursing home practice, and then I went to the psychiatric hospital. For about 5 years, I ran their medical services, and then for 20 years, I ran their chemical dependency services. And these were, I would get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I would struggle to get home by 10 at night.
Yeah,
every day. That was insane. By many years into that, I started having dread. I was overdoing it, workaholism.
What did you do when you realized that you were overdoing it?
What started happening, at least this is my perception in retrospect, is the television started sort of creeping in. And so it slowly forced me to start reducing, like I gave up doing the medical services at the psychiatric hospital. I got a partner at the psychiatric drug unit. I started doing less inpatient work and getting a intensivist to help me, and just sort of slowly moved in that direction for a while. But all the while, though, I still was like, this is television, radio is fun and interesting. Leave me alone to practice medicine. Yeah.
But were you becoming a known figure, a known name at the time while you were doing all this stuff?
When MTV had Loveline, that was pretty popular.
And I mean, you're a young doctor at that point, so you're doing something that really
weird.
doctors are doing.
Yeah, it was weird, and I got both vilified and praised. And I at that point was really not that guy. I was very uncomfortable with being singled out. Now I'm just so damn used to it. I don't care anymore. But at that point, I was really unhappy with it because I wanted to be a good doctor, and I wanted to toe the line. I didn't want to step out of line with my superiors.
Right.
And on that point, I mean, something that we always talk about, obviously, you kind of hear about the successes, and that's something that if someone were to like go search your name, you see all, I mean, you've had an amazing career, but kind of like from, I guess, your perspective, looking back, what was kind of like maybe the lowest point of your career or life? Like, was there a time where you're kind of juggling a bunch of things? I know one thing that we hear a lot is like, you kind of have to figure it out, and to figure it out, you need to do, you need to experience something. So was there like a time that you remember, I don't know, that it was like a tough time, and how'd you come over?
It seemed like there were a lot of tough times, but I feel like I always had so many diversified things going on that I always had something I could move into. I always kind of looked at things that I was doing career-wise almost the way you'd look at a stock portfolio. You'd have just diversified things, and if something starts shrinking, you put more emphasis over here. I remember when Loveline ended. That was a bummer for me because I really enjoyed doing that, and I thought, well, that's about it. That's the end of this, and I didn't really contemplate that there'd be any more television. It stayed on the radio, and Adam and I had fun with that, but I had no idea that there was anything further to be done. It just was a lot of fun doing that, and I missed it. That's all. But and then the other thing was the sort of dread of overworking. That took and once you're, as a physician, when you're that overcommitted, it's not something you can just stop. It took about 5 years to unwind, just to get things sort of sane again, and that took a while.
And speaking of, I guess, burnout I think that's what they
sort
call
of burnout.
What is your advice to professionals today, whether young or old, on ways of preventing burnout?
Well, I think we live in a great time when you can do fun projects like this. Right. You can do so many different things. My advice is don't stay in one lane. Don't do one thing. Just diversify a bit, and don't be afraid to try things. And don't be, and you got to not be focused on strictly whether or not it's financially viable. Just you need to know whether it's spiritually viable, whether it's something you enjoy doing or not. That's really important. And it's almost advice like get a hobby, but it isn't, because I'm saying I think it should be an expression of some synthetic. I really believe that one of the keys is synthesizing everything about yourself. That's what I felt like I was doing. Like all these different parts of me weren't getting used or expressed, and I was always trying to synthesize the pieces, and I'm still doing that. And for me, there's no blueprint of what I'm doing, which is scary and fun at the same time. Because I don't know what's next. I have no idea. I'm just always experimenting, opening doors, seeing what's there.
Which, when you do that, that's the time that you actually are presented, or even just you come across opportunity. I mean, if you're doing just one thing, you're working the same place with the same people. Yeah, that's all you really know. You're in this comfortable little. And
it's not going to change.
Right.
That's going to persist. And if you're starting to burn out because it is so routine. Be careful.
And on the flip side, if you're the entrepreneur, I'm doing a bunch of these different things. Some might call it spreading yourself too thin.
You can burn out that way too.
You can burn out that way as well. I just feel like at this point in my life, it's more of a decision that a person has to make. There's pros and cons to both. Do I want to choose this sort of life or this sort of life? And you just kind of go with it.
Now, my concern is for the millennial population is that most of them are not doing what you did, which is you got a professional training.
Right.
Being an expert in something is really important.
Right.
It changes your thinking. It changes how you think about expertise. It changes how you approach problem solving. And it changes how you approach other experts and take other opinion in and evaluate that opinion. And I'm convinced that millennials, because they're so entrepreneurial, they've skipped the part where you have to have something to offer. Yeah. either business training or legal training or medical, whatever it is, some sort of specialized training. So at least you have something to offer to begin with. It's not just, hey, it's me.
Yeah.
And if it's, hey, it's me, that's something I call the Dunning-Kruger effect. You ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
I haven't, but I'm interested.
Dunning-Kruger effect is a psychopathology, or at least probably more accurately, a psychological observation. These two psychologists observe it, Dunning and Kruger, where you know how somebody can get up at American Idol and sing like crap and then walk off and go, wasn't that great?
Yeah.
Well, that's actually a psychological process that puts people like that. It's a cognitive distortion. And it's essentially based on insufficient experience and training. They've never heard enough good singing. They haven't heard tapes of them singing. And so many millennials today have access to all this information, so it makes them feel like they're expert in everything or have access to everything. But because they have no formal training in anything, they really don't know anything.
Yeah.
And so they have this sort of Dunning-Kruger phenomenon where they feel like an expert, but there's a deep lacking in the ability.
And do you think that comes early on? Because I mean, that's something that like when we kind of talked about in the beginning, or maybe even off the record before we even started, was like, you know, this immigrant parents and kind of this divide with like their generation versus the generation of now, which is, you know, find something that you're passionate in, but also like there's, you know, opportunity in, like being a lawyer or being a doctor, and just stick to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Well, but yeah, their thing would be stick to it. My thing would be just have a backup.
Absolutely.
Have a sort of something there that's sort of substance that backs you up.
My question is like, when do you ever kind of just focus on that thing, like to be the best you can be at that, or is that even like, has that time changed
for me?
Opinion? No, just in general.
Oh, I think there are plenty of people that still do that. I mean, you want to be the best surgeon, the best whatever, and you got to be into that, though. I think the good news is about millennials is that they don't want to do it unless they're really into it, and that's a healthy thing. My generation would have done it just to do it because that's what you had to do it in order to succeed, and it would have its own satisfaction associated with being expert and good and helping people and stuff. And that's the other part that people miss. You know, the whole happiness movement is moving towards what's called eudaimonic happiness, which is meaning-making in life, having a good life. And all that literature shows very clearly that making meaning involves having something to offer other people and doing things for the people, often in a one-on-one scale. And that, you know, Aristotle wrote about that. And he said in order for that to work, you have to have something called phronesis, which is wisdom, and two is technical skill. And I think he's absolutely right. You got to have experience and skill, and then you can help somebody, and then that's fulfilling, and then you'll have a meaningful life.
And just, I don't know, obviously the scientific technical terminology, but just from what you just said, it just seems as though millennials versus the generation before them, the big difference, and I think we mentioned it again earlier, was this instant gratification thing. Like, we want success now.
Well, here's what I've observed, and by the way, another piece of the generational differences is previous generations looked at, is this a financially viable task?
Yeah.
And you guys just look at, do I want to do this?
Right, exactly. That's my heart there.
I'm not sure. There should be a little bit of hybrid of that.
Right. Yeah, there should be.
That'd be my advice.
Otherwise, none of us would make money.
That's right. And you're going to be, that's what the parents are complaining about.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, what you asked me, I lost track of it.
About the instant gratification.
Okay.
The fact that,
so what I've observed is that millennials are very hardworking. That idea that they are lazy is just flat out wrong. But they're impatient.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm putting my time in. I'm going to work with my lights on. I'm coming home with my lights on, and now it's time for me to be a vice president. It's time. It's like we dude, you've been there for 8 months. Yeah. It's like, I've been working my ass off.
I mean, like financial institutions now, I'm sure you know, like if like an entry level job is like vice president. Yeah. Because that's what it's called.
It's just the role.
The name of the role.
And that's because I looked the other day on LinkedIn, and a friend of mine who's like a year or two younger than me is the vice president, like Chase or Bank of America or something. And I'm looking like, okay, first of all, I know this guy. He's not that intelligent to be the vice president of anything. Nonetheless, a financial institution. And then I read somewhere a day after that a lot of these financial institutions are just giving them these roles.
I like it. It makes
just
perfect
to
sense.
Satisfy them like mentally.
It's like great inflation. It's perfect.
So I was like, okay, that's interesting. But so, you said something about the marriage of kind of doing what you love and doing what you want and making money. I really do think, and from the conversations that we've had, with our friends and our colleagues, that's an issue, because what we want to do is very hard to monetize. Like, for example, this podcast, we've been doing this for almost a year now. And, in the beginning, we didn't even have a plan to monetize. We were just like, we just want to do this because we love it. We have our other, we have other jobs that we do during the day. But then it becomes a problem because these things take over your life.
Right.
I prefer doing this
Yes.
than anything else, right?
Don't stop.
Yeah.
But the question, and I can't answer this.
Of course.
When do you give up?
Right.
When is it a hobby and not a financially viable
Right.
project? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. But like you said, keep doing it. And, you'll interview interesting people, and something else will come out of it, and who knows what.
So how do you balance this crazy schedule that apparently you've always had since you were a resident?
Well, true. I've always had some since I'm a resident, but it really got crazy for a while.
Yeah.
And everything has been a vacation since. I mean, look what we're doing. I'm sitting in my house talking to people. This is not work. This is everything compared to seeing 60 patients a day and doing 5 consults. That was insane. And everything else has just been easy ever since.
So why did you, just kind of thinking back to how your mindset was at the time and maybe still is now, like why did you decide to take on that much work?
I bought into this. My dad was a doctor, and he was always sort of available for his patients, and he came from a different era that I wanted to try to maintain. So I was like, I'm going to be the best and the most available 100% of the time. I developed this. Well, I had a perfectionism. I had to be the perfect doctor all the time, and I was so invested in it. It was my being was invested in it. And it's something to do with my heritage and my relationship with my dad or something. It was not good. And I went to therapy, and the therapy helped me sort of start delegating and relegating stuff.
Yeah.
And
But was there something you were trying to prove? Or
I
was
don't know. Because it was so rewarding. I think I was sort of binging on that feedback too, because I have super low self-esteem, right? And so that sort of having something to offer, and it gets part of the making meaning happiness literature I never hear anybody talk about, which is overdoing it, I overdid it. It was so meaningful to me. I killed myself doing it. And it's workaholism.
Clearly it's paid
therapy,
off. So.
Therapy.
Do what you have to
out
do.
of it.
And I guess this is a good transition into more like mental health. And, you said you were dealing with 60 patients a day, and I'm sure the conversations and the things that you guys were talking about and you were seeing were not easy to, take in. How did you deal with it? As their physician, how did you deal with your own mental health?
I didn't. And so when you're a workaholic, you're sort of getting high off the workaholism, right?
Yeah.
So it made me feel good to be doing what I was doing all the time.
Kind of keeps you busy so you don't think about it too much, right?
I was happy doing what I was doing. I was just overdoing, and eventually I kind of burned out a bit. But thankfully I was able to, before I really burned out, I was able to kind of pull back a little bit.
So is that, when you realized it, what did you do?
I didn't realize it till I was out of it, I don't think. This is all looking back, thinking about it. At the time, I was just working my ass off. I thought it was what I was supposed to do. I bought into that. There was a real thing about not sleeping and being available and running in the middle of the night and swashbuckling. And, I bought into that. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to do that. I wanted to, run in for the emergencies and things.
So looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
See, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That because it's what positioned me to do all the other things I've done, and because I saw so much pathology, I've seen everything. There's nothing I haven't seen or dealt with, which is a really unusual experience for an internist. And it wasn't just on the medicine side; it was also on the psychiatric side. So I had this extremely broad experience and intense experience that has carried me ever since. I mean, it was 20 years of a broad experience.
And throughout this time, I know, you kind of outside of work, like go to the gym and you're
I tried to do that.
guy.
For a while there, I wasn't.
So that's the thing. Like for people who are like extremely busy, like sometimes you just like you don't pay attention to your personal
10
health.
years I didn't do it.
Yeah. So like I know. I mean, I'm the same way. Like I make an effort to go to the gym every single day, but sometimes when I'm really busy, like it really hurts me deep
I know.
down.
Well, that's
right. But like, how did
I was so busy. I wouldn't say I forgot about it. It just got washed under. It just like a wave, just like this wave blew over it. And I always thought I'd always work out. I've worked out since I was 14. I've just always done that. I enjoy it.
You'd like prioritize it over like many other things that you
should
be prioritizing.
Yeah, now it's like my meditation. It's really important to me.
And I see Rafi at the gym at like 6 a.m. too.
See?
I know he prioritizes
even
it.
Rafi. See?
So, Dr. Drew, I know for me, and being, Armenian, and we'll bring it up again since you kind of started this thing, mental health and depression, anxiety, suicide, it just means that that person's stupid is what we grew up knowing.
Really?
It's like, and in Armenian they say like abushe, or like, like just there's something wrong with that person. And so we were raised with kind of that mentality. And I don't want to speak for the general population, but
that's an immigrant thing.
Right, that's like an immigrant thing.
Yeah.
So for me, it became more real when I think it was a few years ago at this point, one of my close friends, committed suicide. And, once I was kind of, reflecting myself, and I still think about it now, it's like, how does that happen? It became real to me, and it was an issue that I was like, I need to start thinking about more for myself, my mental health, more so than just my physical health, but also for the mental health of others. And, we've seen it this past, year, like, whether it's the Kate Spades or the Anthony Bourdains and people that we think had all, like, everything, years before that, Amy Winehouse, one of the greatest of all time, if you ask me, right? And you think that they have it all. These people are successful. And you can, I guess the question I'm leading to is, how do you even spot these issues?
Well, let's just first dispel the idea that because people have everything, they don't get mental illness. Would you be surprised if they had an infection? Or a heart attack?
No, I wouldn't be surprised, right.
Or psoriasis. They have brains, and their brains get sick, just like any other body part. That's just the way it is. That we're all genetically set up with what we got, and the environment interaction with the genes up in our head determine something. And mental illness is exceedingly common. It's over 50% of the American population will have a major mental illness in their lifetime, just the way they'll have cancer and vascular disease and anything else.
So is that something that folks maybe listening, or just anyone in general, could kind of keep in their mind to like engage in some sort of like self-care?
Well, yeah, like we were just discussing, don't do what I did. that was luckily I survived all that without any major consequences. But working out regularly, spending enough time with family, being of service, listening to some music, recreating properly, balance is of course the thing. But you were asking how to spot it, and it's not easy to spot depending on what the condition is, right? And know that, if you not sleeping, change in appetite, change in hygiene, to thinking worthlessness or self-harm or more disturbed thinking and delusional thought, these are all brain signs.
Right. And I just kind of want to delve a little deeper because, when these celebrity deaths and suicides happen, people start talking about it, but there's a lot more happening every day with just the regular people.
You want to focus on suicide.
On suicide, right? Okay. And or what leads to suicide as well, because people,
lots of things.
Right.
It's not one thing.
I meant more so. People always say, talk to your friend, like tell them you love them, all this stuff. But people that are going through that, they don't want to talk about it,
right?
So I guess, and again, like I don't want to push too far, but what can folks like us, people's friends do to perhaps get these people to talk or just share or be more open, or I don't really know.
Well, that might not do anything. Are you, when they're actively suicidal, are you talking about, or when they're just depressed?
Like fringe, even perhaps.
Yeah. If somebody is complaining about chronic unhappiness and sadness, get them into the professional. There's to be withholding treatment to me is as bizarre as if they're infected gangrene in their finger and you went, oh, I don't need the doctor. That's insane to me.
It's a pride thing.
It's weird. I went to therapy for 11 years, and I went because my workaholism and my anxiety.
And do you recommend people to go to therapy?
Depending on what the condition is, yeah. Just get treatment. Treatment works. That's the thing. It really works. And why would you withhold that from somebody if they're miserable or suffering or having any symptomatology that's disturbing?
So looking back, besides the fact that you're a workaholic and you worked your ass off, was there anything else that you think you did, or maybe it was a mindset thing that set you apart from someone else who might be studying, psychology and mental health and wanting to go down that profession?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say. I know that I was really good on my feet, and I'm really good at thinking on my feet. And I noticed some of my peers sometimes, could do the tests well, great, maybe better than me, but didn't seem to be able to process in a holistic way. I can walk in a room and I'll know what's going on immediately. I just smell it. That part of my brain is very good at sort of taking lots of different pieces of information and holistically assessing it and coming up with a spectrum of possibilities. Like I just know it immediately. It all just comes to me, and I have to pay careful attention. I have to listen very carefully. But as I do, it literally will just come to me. And I guess.
And were you always like that?
I on my feet, I was good. Yeah. I was always good on my feet. I had great training as an undergraduate at Amherst College. That the analytical thinking, problem solving, proper reading, listening in lecture halls and stuff. I mean, I had great undergraduate training, and I think that kind of set me up. So because the first years of medical school were like a big language class. I thought they were. I thought it was pathetic. It was just cramming a bunch of information in your head and regurgitating it. To me, was like that's not education. It's like learning a language. Not even learning a language. It's learning the vocabulary of a language, and the application is like completely left out. So I was doing a lot of thinking as we were learning it, and then when I hit the wards, I was able to apply it pretty well.
Yeah, I know something that you said publicly before too is like how you've always wanted to kind of stay relevant to young people and kind of like this whole pop culture movement. And
I guess I did. I'm maybe because I'm getting older, giving up a little bit on that, but mostly it's because young people are the repository of the future. I mean, they're the resource of the future, and their direction gets set in adolescence, young adulthood, and I could see these trajectories going in the wrong direction. I want to help them with their trajectory.
So I think my question is like, how do you do that? Like, is it
How
like
do you
a
stay
matter
relevant?
Yeah, like how do you do that? I guess personally,
I've been on MTV continuously since 1996. I mean, I go where they are, bottom line, and be. Here's what I do that's different. I'm willing to insert myself in projects that are uncomfortable. Because I understand that TV producers and networks know how to capture eyes. That's their job. My job is to insert myself into those vehicles and then try to push information out or give people what they need once I've found a position for like Teen Mom's a good example of that. Like I knew that would work. I knew it. And so I was delighted to be a part of it and just get involved with it and figure out how I could use it to corral it and put information in there and make good use of it. But I knew it would work.
And you're doing a bunch of shows. I mean, you have a bunch of podcasts now. As far as, your media career goes and the future of media and, reality television, where do you see it going? Because I know
I have no idea.
Really?
I have no idea. I am presently pitching like 5 different shows and I don't understand the ones that they turned down. I don't understand why they're turning them down. They seem like the right direction to me.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know.
Do you see podcasts as, the future of radio?
No.
Or the future of media?
No. I think we've just added another medium. I think that the audience, broadcast will always be there. The power of mass media has not been replicated by any narrowcast on the internet. It just hasn't. So true broadcast or cable at least will always have a place, and it will always be in a superior position to some of these siloed audience delivery mechanisms. But they are important to attract an audience for some of the siloed products. Radio, people predicted AM would die when FM came around. FM was going to die when podcasting came around or Pandora came around. None of that's true.
Right.
It just sort of
cut into the market share a little bit.
Yeah, it just diversifies the audience. It just fragments
so as
the
the
audience
space, I guess, gets more saturated. What are your thoughts on? I know in the past you've kind of had your thoughts on like just media in general and how they can distort things.
Yeah,
and,
I'm interested in the media doing good.
So what? Yeah, so like, I guess what advice would you give to people?
How's
like
that?
I mean, just like fake news and all this stuff.
Oh
that
yeah,
you hear,
media's been very destructive.
Distortion.
Well, my naive idea when I started was looking at radio and all the pathology it had brought, which was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and I was like, man, I'm seeing all this in the psych hospital. The radio and rock has been a very problematic influence. Maybe if I got involved with those media, I could shift it and make it a force for good.
Yeah.
And so that's always been my sort of paradigm. That's been the model. And I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to pitch documentaries to Netflix and things. Yeah. I've got reality show ideas, but I don't know if any of them will go.
So, Dr. Drew, I know that you have done so much stuff. I mean, you're a wise person, What's next for you? I mean,
I have no idea.
But what's your purpose? I mean, like you have a purpose for sure.
My purpose is to make a difference.
Right.
That's my purpose.
But just kind of digging a little deeper.
Do good, make a difference.
And that's what satisfies you?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Let me see if I can parse it out any more than that.
This is the legal training coming in. I mean, I really want to get to the root of it.
Yeah, sure, I get it. I enjoy people. I enjoy sort of performing. Like right now, one of the things I'm really focused on is public speaking. I really enjoy public speaking.
Yeah.
I like dealing with audiences and groups of people. I just enjoy it. So it's some satisfaction of working with audiences, giving information that I think is important, and then and there's a creative element in it too, which I'm trying to create stuff that will sell to a network and do good and be fun to make. That is pretty much it. That all sounds really appealing to me as I describe it.
That answer, I think, was better than to do good.
Yeah, well, do good is the headline.
It's the headline.
Yeah,
right.
but
that's the chapter 11 of like the book.
but it's
or chapter 12. Chapter 11 is
well,
bad.
but I use do good, have fun, create. All those things are deep impulses.
So when you decide like what you're going to be doing next, or like when something comes your way, and obviously you create those opportunities for yourself, but like overall, what is like the lens that you look at it? And I guess a better question would be, like, what are your maybe like top 3 values that you need to stick to no matter what you do?
Well, do no harm, right? That as a physician.
It's a great book, also, by the way. I'm sure you've read it.
No.
First, do no harm.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, that's the credo that we were raised on as physicians, and make a difference, right? As you were saying that, you were asking, what the lens is.
Yeah.
When I'm offered things, my first impulse is what can I do with this? Is there something I can make of this? And I remember once, this was sort of we call it the Dunkin' Donuts episode or model. Dunkin' Donuts came to me and they wanted me to do a commercial or sort of a media campaign, like a one-day satellite tour for them about their new coffee drink, and it was going to I don't know, summer romances and coffee. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm not interested. But I said, you know what, though? This was like 10, 12 years ago. And I said, there's all this data about coffee and caffeine that people are not publicizing. I would happily climb into their satellite booth and talk about the benefits of caffeine and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, things like that. And, oh, by the way, they have a drink and they sent me here and so fun. Yeah. I did it. And that worked for me. I was like educating about caffeine, and they got their drink in there, whatever. Yeah. But I got a chance to access people and talk about the campaign.
I'm glad you bring that up, because that's something that we've seen a lot now too, with just the whole like media space in general, and just like marketing, whatever branding marketing is, like, that kind of shove it in your face model doesn't work anymore. No. It's kind of like, they've coined it like content marketing, which is you give them value, and then you kind of like, the plug is like, you don't really have to necessarily say it directly. It's like indirectly you're advertising.
On the other hand, this is funny. This is an interesting conversation, because Sam Harris he's that Waking Up podcast, and he wants to put it all behind a paywall, and he wants to not use ads because he's fearful that he's going to be judged as somehow
endorsing it,
or not as trustworthy because he's endorsing some product that he doesn't really believe in. And when he said that, I was like, hey, that makes me angry, because I, as a consumer, I know it's Sam. I know he's just reading an ad. He's reading it so I can get this thing for free. Yeah. And I appreciate that he does it. It doesn't in any way affect what I think of him. Now, he's getting into territory about racism and things like that, where I think he's now in a point where he can't get sponsors, so I think that's part of the deal. And okay, I get that.
It's a good PR spin.
But I was like, hey, don't read the damn ad. I'm a consumer. I understand what it means when you read an ad. And by the way, and let me decide if I want to listen to the ad, or let me decide if I want to hear about that product. Maybe I do, but just to go, oh no, I can't be sullied by that kind of made me angry. It did. I mean, I think we're all very skilled consumers. Yeah.
But if
we want to consume for free, we understand people have to do things to get us those free products.
I think it's the combination, and you touched upon it, it's the combination of how do you provide education and entertainment, and if you can combine those
that's
two
always the conundrum in media.
And again, like, when I was saying earlier about the educational system, people like in our generation, the millennial generation, and those that are coming after us, my 2-year-old cousin knows how to use an iPad. Yeah. These kids are growing up with technology. Oh yeah. Whereas for us, like, we were kind of on the fringe of like, oh,
here it comes.
Right.
It came in.
And so but the new language is going to be English and coding. Like, it's going to be like English as a second language, perhaps, and coding is going to be number one, right?
Weird.
So, times are changing, and I think it's important to stay, in touch with your surroundings and keep updated with technology and everything else. Speaking of keeping up to date, I know that your Instagram profile is you in a Dodgers jersey. So what are your thoughts on the Dodgers in this upcoming season?
Well, first of all, I had to think about it. Like, it is? Is it me in a Dodgers?
Oh, yeah.
Sure of that? Is that my Instagram?
Is it yours?
Well, I sang.
There is a Dodgers jersey in that Instagram profile.
Hang on. I sang the national anthem for the. Oh yeah, I'm in the Dodgers uniform. I sang the national anthem for the Dodgers.
You sang the national anthem for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and the Kings. I've done that a few times.
When was that?
I've blessed several times last 2 years.
Okay, good to know.
Very fun, very fun.
I'm sure it is.
Is that on YouTube or something? I gotta watch
the Kings one is. I can probably give you that. That's it, and that's way more intense than Dodger Stadium. You don't think about it.
Oh,
it's the same organist.
The Staples Centers, yeah.
Same organist in both places,
right?
Dieter, and in Dodger Stadium, you stand at home plate. You look into the outfield bleachers because you have no idea if anybody's behind you
because they're eating their all-you-can-eat dogs or whatever. The deal is there.
The flag is way out there between the two jumbotrons, and you have the ear things in, so so you're hearing your voice, and it's like you're in an isolation booth. The Kings game is like, you've been to a Kings game?
Yeah.
Lasers and spotlights, and both teams are flying around you at 75 miles an hour, and then kaboom, the spotlight comes on you, and you can feel people breathing on you from the sides. It's intense, and so that freaks me out every time. But it's fun. It's
how did that even come about? I mean, did someone know like you sang on the side?
Yes, and so here's how it came about. I have an AM radio show right now. I do every day on KGO in San Francisco and KBC in Los Angeles, and they were the home of the Kings. And my program director went, "You can sing. We'll have you sing the night. It'll be a great promotion."
Signed you up without telling you.
And then when I did it, I was like, "Oh, free seats, free food.
Oh yeah.
Wonder what the Dodgers are up to. Wonder if I could go do sing for them."
Next thing you know, Dr. Drew just launches his own album, and
I would happily
do the Lakers this season too.
Well, and wait till the Rams get going. I'm going to hang around that stadium. But I just, it's really fun. It's very fun. Talk about it's like an insurmountable task a little bit. It's a big task. You've never done it. It's very nerve-wracking.
To your point on putting yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, you got to push yourself a little bit.
So the Dodgers, you think, are going to be successful?
I'm not sure about this season. I thought for sure, and now I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I'm a postseason fan. I get involved deeply in the postseason. So.
I think we just watched the Houston Astros Dodgers series last year, and that was it.
Me too.
We're like, we don't even know who the other teams are.
And
you somehow at the time, all the players, everything about them, and then 2 months later you forget all the names.
I'm bad. I'm really an LA fan. But as it pertains to insurmountable task, I really think that's an important experience for people. Not everyone gets to have that experience. And I had it when after I described to screwing around in college for a couple years, when I got back and it was time to get busy and do my pre-med training, that looked like I just had literally an image in my head of a wall that went to infinity, and I just had to climb the wall. And I just remember thinking, all right, just one brick at a time, just start putting my pegs in the wall, and I'm just going to start climbing. I'm not even going to look at the top, just going to keep climbing. And all of a sudden, I was climbing over that wall a couple of years later. I couldn't believe it. And it was super intense and super competitive and crazy making, because you don't know, your grades meant everything back then in terms of medical school admissions.
And the more competitive it gets, the more it does. Yeah,
extremely unpleasant time. It was not easy, but important. And it's funny, my sons have had similar experiences, sort of with insurmountable tasks, and both of them will talk about it. And you can't predict where they're going to occur or how, but it's important to let kids go through impossible tasks. That's really where their sense of self-confidence, the willing to stick in with problem solvings, and grit really comes from.
And Doctor, I know that you enjoy traveling. Are there any recommendations that you would give to millennials like us to, and I hate calling ourselves that, but that's what we are.
Where to go to travel?
Yeah, where to go to travel. Because, that's something that, Pat and I always are talking about. It's like, how do we find the time? Because we're always hustling, always doing so many things. And,
see, I like traveling and working. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably going to end up being the case for us.
Yeah, so
and sorry to cut you off, but to your point on what you had said before, I think is really important here too. Is not even that. It's just like you had mentioned it earlier on, but it was about this kind of concept of like exposure and like being exposed to things to know if you're going to be, good at it. So I think like traveling
is part of that.
That's a big part of it.
But I like traveling to places where I have purpose, like I'm doing something.
Yeah.
And that's where you meet interesting people. people, and you feel like, you don't feel lost. You feel, I'm shy. I tell you, I'm shy. I have low self-esteem. And so for me, just to go somewhere and meet, impossible. Talk about insurmountable task.
Yeah.
No way. And now it's weird because the people recognize me, and I'm like, who are you? It's weird for me. But to go and like give a talk or go and have go to a meeting, and to me that's great. I can't get enough of that. And I just think our great country, man, you can't see enough of it. Yes, right.
It's so underrated.
It's so great. The cities are so great. There's so much. The people are so great.
What are a few of your favorite cities?
Chicago and New York.
Really?
I mean, Chicago's a great city if you have a chance to spend any time there. And then New York, I spent a lot of time there. I had a weird realization about 2 months ago.
That you might move there?
Well, no, I have had that thought for a while, but I woke. We're there a lot, and I woke up. I was doing a Teen Mom episode, and I was being driven downtown to go do that, and I was looking the street. I'm like, oh my God, what is this feeling? I was like, oh, I'm actually physically in love with this city. I'm in love with it. It's crazy.
Yeah. Is it just a fast-paced environment?
I just love everything about it.
Yeah.
I love every corner, every architectural building I look at. I'm in love with it. It's just there. It's just you're out. Wherever you walk out, you're in it. It's something crazy going on.
And it's funny you say that because now that I think about it, for me that happened in, of all places, Providence, Rhode Island.
Interesting. Did you go to Brown or something? Or did
I go to what?
Brown? No.
No. I wish I went to Brown. No, we went to Boston for a family trip, and my dad knew a friend from Providence, so we ended up driving down there. And I mean, I'm not a chill person by any means, but I liked the chill.
Something about it.
Yeah, it was just there was just culture.
Yeah,
Compared to the West Coast, the East Coast just has. And I'm a Patriots fan, so I was there for probably a Patriots game, and I just love the culture. The people are just completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm a people person like yourself, so I like talking to people. I like meeting new people, and it's so different out there. The seafood and the fresh air and just everything. And I was there for like 2 days, and I was like, I love this place. I don't know if I could live there, but in this moment, I love it.
Isn't it a crazy feeling?
Yeah, and I've never felt that about Glendale or LA.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to feel about a place. And I was like, well, that's that. And then Chicago, I feel like romantically inclined towards. It's such a great town. It really is. People are so Midwest. The people are so nice. It's out of control and so industrious and really, really cool. Yeah. I'm still preoccupied with your question about the lowest point.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was just thinking about something that happened to me that was mind-boggling, and it's not so unusual today in the area of social media and mob behavior on social media. So in 1997, so I just finished Loveline. I was a novice at media. A pharmaceutical company hired me to go out and give a series of talks on the side effects of antidepressants. And I was like, I'm in, because all I was hearing about on radio was people's relationships being destroyed by the sexual side effects of antidepressants, and the companies were denying it. And I was like, and this was a company, at that time it was, I think Burroughs Wellcome or something.
Yeah.
And they had a medicine, an antidepressant, that didn't have that side effect. So of course they were interested in advocating for that. I was like, fine, whatever. It was a non-branded campaign. I almost never had to mention their product. The product was only mentioned in anything. When I'm out on behalf of anybody, I have to call it like I see it. And so we were giving these lectures, and I would occasionally do some radio shows promoting the lectures in the town I went into. And it's 1998 now. It was like a 2-year campaign. I was with a bunch of psychiatrists and gynecologists, and I thought we were doing we wrote a book about it. It was this really great campaign. And evidently in one city, I don't even know where, I got an interview, and the guy said, well, these sexual side effects, what do you do with your patients if this happens? And I said, well, what do I do with my patients? And I'm absolutely entitled to answer this question.
Right.
I said, my patients, what I do is I either switch them to Cerazone, Remeron, or Wellbutrin, or sometimes I'll add Wellbutrin. Well, adding Wellbutrin is an off-label maneuver that I used to do. But because I had accepted money from that company, and I just, for whatever reason, I didn't say, oh, and by the way, I'm being represented, I work for that company and do some things.
Yeah.
I got then 20 years later, or 18 years later, got put into a $4 billion suit from the federal government, suing now, which was now 3 companies later. They've been bought and bought and bought. The company I worked for was 3 companies down the line.
When they were doing due diligence or some bullshit.
They found this, and I got wrapped into this $4 billion lawsuit for this company that apparently had a practice of pushing doctors for off-label use of medicine. I got vilified as this dude who's a shill for pharmaceutical companies, and all you're doing is pushing meds, and you take money from the evil empire. Now, that was 20 years ago when it was a very different world.
Yeah.
That doctors and pharmaceutical companies kind of work together. And now no way I would take money from a pharmaceutical company. I understand that this is not okay right now. And it's been to this day, you'll see stuff on my social media.
And it's crazy because back then it's like, it's like a spur of the moment thing, and you just don't in a way, you don't realize
when I was answering the questions.
Yeah, and now with social media, you can come out and put a statement.
But people don't even know what I was in the suit for.
Yeah,
they somehow think that somehow as a doctor taking money from drug companies. No, I was paid to go out and spend my year giving lectures and things. Yeah. And it had nothing to do with taking money from the drug company. It was, I forgot, it was mentioning an off-label use and forgetting to say that company I worked for.
Well, that story's not sexy.
People don't understand it. They don't understand it.
And that's why this whole fake news phenomenon and bullshit has come
total fake news.
Because people just want sexy. Like all the real stuff isn't sexy.
You know what they want?
The struggles aren't sexy.
They want outrage.
Yeah, that's all.
It's not outrageous. Exactly. What I did was not outrageous,
Right.
but how can I get outraged over that?
Right.
I want to be outraged.
Yeah.
And outrage is the currency of the day. And the outrage and envy, and those are 2 extremely destructive emotions. That fact is the thing that scares me most about what's going on today. Yeah. With outrage and envy, you can't have discourse. Without discourse, you can't evolve. You can't change your mind. My mind changed all the time. Yeah. So it's concerning. Anyway, that was bugging me.
I'm
that was a low point.
And what I was saying was now with social media, you could at least come out and issue a statement or something. But even then, it still doesn't do the.
It doesn't matter. They've decided what that is,
Yeah.
and it was in the early days of Twitter. And this was when this came out, I guess, like 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. So it was from 1997 to maybe 2015, 14, maybe probably came out. So a 17-year difference there. And still people were just going nuts.
Wow.
And boy, the articles that were written, talk about fake news. It was unbelievable. It was really unbelievable.
Yeah. It's not like it's gone any better these days. Which is,
when you're the object, you're the object of it, you realize how bad fake news is. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, Dr.
You guys
Drew,
running out of steam? Is that it?
No.
You can't go for another hour?
We can go. I was just about to say I can go on and on and on. I mean, all I do is talk, but obviously we respect your time. And
I like your drilling. I like your pushing for an answer. I like that.
I mean, I didn't want to be too pushy, but I think
be
at the end of the day,
pushy because that's how you get
right. I think it's important for listeners or but anybody else to really even for news question the source.
Right. First of all, you listened.
Yes.
You heard that the answer was superficial and you wanted something more.
Yeah.
I should be able to deliver that. No problem with that.
And I hope and that's the thing is I hope our listeners that are reading these tweets, that are reading President Trump's bullshit that he puts out there, whoever it may be, even the people that you like.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember my dad probably told me years ago is trust but verify. Just fucking read it, pretend it's true, but then do a little bit of research. I mean, whether you're a lawyer, doctor, businessman, whatever the hell you are, don't just take something for face value and then run with it based off something that somebody else told you.
Yes.
Try to do a little bit of due diligence, your own research.
And go to real experts. Real experts.
In Twitter terms for all the millennials, don't just retweet with a quote of your own opinion.
Right.
There you go.
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, if there's anything else that you want to tell our listeners as far as, advice or guidance, wisdom, whatever it may be, here's your opportunity.
Go to therapy. It's a good thing.
Any book recommendations?
Oh, I got lots of them. What area?
Maybe we can hit you up after and we could put
what area are you thinking about? What do you?
Let's stick to the mental health self-care topic.
Yeah, that's too big. Give me some.
Oh, now you're drilling to me. Just personal kind of care and just
because there's very few.
What's if you can think of 1 or 2 books that really have stood out to you that you.
Well, one in terms of dealing with narcissists, it's called "Why Is It Always About You?" And there's a lot of narcissism out there, and so it helps you deal with narcissists.
Kanye West, you got to read that book.
Why Is It Always About You?
Well, no, the people that know Kanye West read that.
And otherwise, I read a lot of biographies and things like that. I had a ton of stuff. I read presidential biographies. Strangely,
those are my favorite. My favorite, and don't judge me, but it was 40. It was 41 by George. I think George W. Bush probably wrote, didn't write it, but he had a ghostwriter. I loved just senior President Bush's story, because he was just such an accomplished person.
So I got to read that. My favorite was Theodore Rex.
Theodore
Or The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay.
That one. The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay.
Just so good. He was such a nut. He was so nutty.
Yeah.
It's why I don't get upset about Trump, because Theodore Roosevelt, by far my favorite president, maybe Lincoln.
Yeah, he's my favorite. Yeah.
And I've read like 40 Lincoln biographies.
I go to the gym with a Teddy Roosevelt T-shirt almost like twice a week.
You gotta
I get dirty looks because
read The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt.
Yeah.
But he was a nut. He was a nut. He's narcissist, manic, impulsive.
Sounds a lot like.
Oh my God! Same. And so when people start asking me to, evaluate mental health or personality styles of presidents, I'm like, I don't know what's right for history. I don't know.
Yeah, you don't.
I just that's not my field. That's in too broad a category to predict. We're putting a human being in these positions.
Right.
That already is a dicey proposition.
Well, I would argue that the psychology and the mental health of the president is not as important as the people of the nation, because those are the people that are electing that person.
Well, isn't that interesting? And really, what the present day tells us about more than anything else is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to really look at things that way. And when we complain about everything else, just take a good look at what we're all up to here and how we consume things and how we react to things.
Yeah.
It's about us, not more. We're the collective. We're it. And we're a little bit of a spiritual vacuum right now. We need to kind of work on things.
Yeah.
But I think the millennials are going to work their way through this in a surprising way. That's my deepest instinct, because you guys do work hard and you are thinking about things and you are entrepreneurial, and there's going to be opportunity. You've not had opportunity. The economy has been flatter.
Yeah.
It's not been more negative, but flatter than any period in my life. And that flatness has it lacks a certain kind of dynamism and optimism, and it sidelined a lot of people. It didn't inspire a lot of people, and it's turning on right now.
Right.
And you guys are all on the sidelines, or maybe just getting in the game, and you will be in position to take full advantage.
I think what's
of
happening
this.
really is it's eradicating that notion of like you can't have much say or power or control over the direction of your country and your government and your president. But it's like something like this needed to happen. For
whatever. All I know is the economy is turning on, and that's going to help you guys for sure.
And your dog is telling us that we got to end.
I think that's right. I think that's what he said. I heard it.
Love it.
Okay,
Well, thank you so much.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
much.
much.